Hey guys, welcome back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with our tier list for patch 4.3. So we haven't done one of these in like quite a while now, honestly, but obviously patch 4.3 has had some big updates, and we of course took a little bit of time to sort of get used to the meta and see what's good and what's not, and there are quite a lot of changes in the tier list, particularly in the jungle and mid roles, as well as a little bit of the support role. But the two biggest changes of this patch is the addition of the new boot system, and most notably is the boots that give you magic pen and mana are extremely overpowered. They're really strong, and it's kind of meta defining, especially in the mid lane. And then of course we also have the new runes Glacial Augment and First Strike, which of course makes a lot of champions a lot better, and you will already see here from our Baron lane tier list that honestly not too many changes, but the main change that we can see here is Jace being now in the S plus tier. Now Jace is one of the best users for First Strike, especially in the Baron lane, because in the Baron lane generally everybody is melee. If you take a look at the S plus tier as well as the S tier, pretty much everybody, actually not even pretty much, everybody here is actually melee, with the exception of Jace, who is both ranged and melee. So Jace can very easily proc his First Strike, get a lot of free gold, get accelerated from literally just trading with his opponent, and First Strike, in my opinion at the moment, gives way too much gold compared to what PC gives. So First Strike at the current moment is really strong of a rune. So that's why Jace is up there. The rest of the S plus tier stays the same. Something notable is Ornn. Ornn actually still is the strongest Baron laner in the game, in my opinion, despite the fact that he got his defenses nerfed. Honestly, if you didn't tell me that, I wouldn't even notice. I barely feel the difference. I still think that Ornn is really tanky, and yeah, so surprisingly the rest of the Baron lane tier list basically almost like fully remains the same. Nothing too much has changed in the Baron lane, but now we'll move on to talking about the jungle, where there's a lot more changes. Okay, so now for the jungle, what I've actually done is, you guys notice normally I have a huge S tier, so what I've done is I've actually split the S tier into the S and the A plus tier. So basically everybody moves down like one tier from like the previous patch. So most champions who were in A plus are now A are in B, B are in C, and etc. But anyways, let's start off at the top. So First Strike on Kayn, Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, and Evelynn are absolutely insane. Additionally, Evelynn can also use the Magic Pen boots, and she also has Magic Pen on her W, so Evelynn is actually now really insane. Thankfully for most of us, she's not too popular, at least not yet. Maybe people haven't realized how strong she really is at the current moment, but Evelynn is actually incredibly strong. Now, same thing for the other three AD assassins. You generally want to go for a strike. Kayn normally goes for blue Kayn. So you go for First Strike. Of course, you build lethality. You could even opt into the new lethality boots if you want. First Strike, of course, gives you a lot of gold, and you pretty much just get fully accelerated just based off of that. So S tier, of course, we've dropped down Olaf and Gwen to the S tier, and we've moved Jarvan and Vi to almost near the top of the S tier. And the reason for this is, as I mentioned in my previous tier list video, lethality, Jarvan, and Vi are now currently the most popular ways to play them. So this basically involves like a one-shot kind of style where you just go in and assassinate someone. And this ties into, of course, our new rune, First Strike. So First Strike, of course, can now be put onto lethality, Vi, and Jarvan, and because of this they do even more burst damage, they get even more gold, and as a result they basically are now even stronger. And I think that they might move up to the S plus tier depending on how strong they are, but I haven't played against them too much, so I'm not entirely sure. Pantheon, of course, is another user of First Strike, who of course can come in with the ganks and proc his First Strike, get down a huge amount of burst damage, and of course benefit from the goal. Now Volibear, I've actually moved up from the A plus tier to the S tier because I've played against a number of Volibears, and it's sort of like the Ornn problem, but it's not as bad. Basically Volibear is just extremely tanky. Of course he has really good ganks, can disable towers, although in practice honestly I don't see Volibears disabling towers all that much. But anyways, regardless of that, that's not his main selling point. I think his main selling point is his strong ganks with his Q, as well as his insane levels of tankiness when he's even or ahead. Now Rammus is of course still there because of how ADCs are. Honestly, ADCs are not that strong anymore compared to previous patches, but ADCs are still pretty strong. AD is also pretty strong in the meta, but of course now AP is coming back, so Rammus might be dropping down in the future. And Diana is actually now really strong. Of course, she can take the she can take the new first strike rune if she wants to, and most Dianas do. But she can take the magic pen boots as well. You can go for like electrocute, like Luden's Echo, full burst kind of Diana, and that kind of build is really strong at the moment. So the couple of champs I moved down from the S tier to the A plus tier are the champs I feel that are still really strong, but they're just not as good as the S tier champions at the moment. Champions like Twitch, Echo, Gragas, Aatrox, as well as Yone. Now A now has become the tier with a lot of champions in it. Champions like Jax, Xin, Nunu, Morgana, etc. As you guys can see here. The rest of the tier list, I'm not going to talk about it too much because those champs are not generally not advisable to pick anyways. Generally you should try to pick from the S plus to the A plus tier. And we're going to talk about the mid lane now. So mid lane has a very relatively similar story to jungle. Basically, I used to have a huge S tier, if you guys remember. So I basically split the top champions into the S plus, the S, and the A plus tier. I think all of the champions from S plus to A plus are all very, very strong champs that you can and should be picking in your games. There's a total of like 18 champs here, so like there's a lot of choice for the champions you want to take. And below that, the A to like the D tier are the champs that I think are not so good. So the first champ I want to briefly mention is Annie in the C tier. Now, although I put Annie in the C tier, which is like pretty poor in terms of where she stands in the mid lane, I haven't seen her play that much, but I do think she might move up to like, let's say, the A or the A plus tier in a future patch. And the reason is because of First Strike. Because First Strike on Annie is actually really strong. What she can do is she can basically use her E, walk up and proc First Strike using her full combo. And the reason why this is good is because with her E on her, you guarantee that you proc First Strike. This is because the E reflects damage onto your opponent, so even if they attack you, it's gonna reflect damage onto them and proc your First Strike instantly, and then you can full combo them. You can even just use your ult to full combo them just to get the First Strike value and not actually go for a kill. That's a very common practice in LoL PC. However, because Annie rework is also coming, and I heard that Annie rework is not going to reflect damage on her shield anymore, but her Tibber is going to get an extra knockup. I'm not too sure where she stands at the moment, especially since she's going to get reworked real soon. Now, Lux in the mid lane I actually think is really strong. Just that I think Lux in support is way better, which is why I put Lux in the A tier. But now I'm going to start talking from the top, from the S plus tier. So, at the S plus tier, we basically have First Strike users / assassins. So, we have, of course, Zoe, who is, of course, not a First Strike user. She uses Electrocute, but what she does have is she has the new Magic Pen boots, and I think that Zoe was already insane before, and now she's even more insane. Think the mid lane assassins, like for example Zed, can go for Electrocute or First Strike, but I think in general Electrocute is better because of laning phase. First Strike is generally a lot better in places like the jungle or in certain specific top laners or ADCs. But of course, Zed is still really strong, same as last patch. She was in the S plus tier in the last patch as well. Akali also, once again, she got the Magic Pen boots, and of course, the new runes rework also helped out some champions like Zoe and Akali a lot by allowing them to take sudden impact in addition to a lot of other damage runes. Now, Corki as well as Jace are the First Strike users who like basically have super long range and guarantee they hit First Strike every time. Yone and Yasuo are really strong because of Berserker Greaves. Berserker Greaves giving them the 30% attack speed, which they can go for as a first item if they want to, make them incredibly strong because their Q cooldown becomes really low. They have a lot of attack speed and they have very high DPS, which makes them very strong. Then after Yasuo, we have the couple of magic damage assassins. We have Diana, Katarina, as well as Vex, who of course all can make very good use of the magic penetration boots / the mana boots, and get very easy armor penetration early. And then of course we have Ziggs, who has been getting buffed for the past couple of patches, although not this one, and also has the mana boots, which helps him a lot. Same goes for Ahri. And then in the A plus tier we have the rest of the S tier champions, who I think are slightly worse. Champions like Ori, like Kassadin, and you guys can see the rest for yourself. And next up we'll talk about the ADCs. So ADCs, of course, is my favorite part to talk about, my general area of expertise. So we have a couple of things to discuss here. First up, let's start from the top. So of course we have Kai'Sa as well as Tristana, who I still think are the two best ADCs. They're really strong early game, really strong late game as well. Really just good at most points in the game. Generally, mid game has a slight trough for Tristana, but both of these champions are now still the top dogs in my opinion. Then we have the two first strike users, Ezreal as well as Corki. Corki, we've talked about him in the mid lane already. Ezreal now takes first strike every time because first strike gives you a lot of gold at the moment. If first strike gets nerfs, I do think Ezreal will go back to taking Conqueror or Kraken Slayer. But for now, Ezreal gets a lot of gold from first strike and just gets a lot of value. We've already done a video on him, so you can really see how much gold you get from first strike. Now Varus, I've actually moved him up to the S+ tier mainly because of two reasons. The first reason is lethality Varus with first strike is absolutely insane. We've already done a video on that, and I think that if you're playing into any kind of like squishy team with like one or less tanks, one or no tanks, lethality Varus is a completely broken S+ pick. However, if you have like two or more tanks, then he becomes not so strong. But another reason why he's in the S+ tier is because of how variable his builds are. So aside from going for this lethality first strike Varus, you can also go for the full AP Varus, the unhit, like auto attack crit kind of Varus, a lot of different Varus builds. We of course covered all of these Varus builds in patch 4.2, and it's of course still on the channel if you guys want to check it out. But the runes of course are not updated from the latest patch. So barely missing out on the S+ tier is Jhin, who I've put at the top of S tier. Still think he's really strong, but just I don't want to make the S+ tier too big, so I think that he is going to be at the top of S. So the next notable champion I want to talk about is Nilah, who's of course the latest newest champion. Now, done a couple of videos on Nilah, including one yesterday. But the reason why after playing her so much, I decided she's at the top of A+ tier and not in the S+ or S tier is mainly because of her laning phase. I think her damage is insane, her healing is insane. However, the huge drawback of playing her is that her laning phase is absolutely trash. Like, if you think that playing someone like Vayne is bad, Vayne is gonna seem like a god tier laner when you compare her with Nilah. Because remember, you're playing a melee champ against like ranged champs, and really, you're just gonna get poked down, and you're just gonna get basically destroyed by almost. I mean, it's not even almost. Like, to me, you're gonna get destroyed by every single ADC. If you're against like a Varus, a Ezreal, or Corki, you're gonna get poked down. You can do nothing. If you're against like a shorter range champion, comparably like a Tristana or a Kai'Sa, you know, they still have longer range than you, even though they have short range because you're melee, and you can still get poked down. So honestly, Nilah's laning phase is absolutely horrendous, and it mainly depends on how much your opponent decides to bully or not bully you. The only thing that can save her is if your jungler ganks for you, because you generally are always pushed into tower, so it's very easy ganks for a jungler, and sometimes from the ganks you can get a hit. So basically, Nilah in laning phase is just trying not to die and trying to get your jungle to gank so you can you can get kills together. But aside from that, if you survive the laning phase, then she becomes like an S to S+ tier champion, because if you can get past the laning phase, she becomes an incredibly strong champ, because obviously being melee doesn't matter anymore. When you go in, you heal a lot, you do a lot of damage, and you just become a monster. But it's just getting to that point is the issue. So another notable champion I want to talk about is Draven. Now Draven, I'm planning to make a video for him soon, maybe tomorrow or the day after. I've already gotten the gameplay for him, but honestly playing Draven extensively has made me realize that Draven is not really as strong as I thought. Now, of course, if you're good at Draven, he is still going to be a good champion. Like, of course, those Draven one tricks can still make him work, make him look like an S+ tier champion. But in general, the main reason why I think Draven is not very strong is because he doesn't do enough damage in lane. It sounds really weird that Draven doesn't do enough damage, but if you really think about it, his damage can be competitive with champions like Nilah, Tristana, and such. And Draven, his main selling point is how his early game is very strong, and how he's able to completely dismantle someone in the laning phase and get a hit from there. Obviously, needless to say, if you're behind, you're basically completely useless. If you have to be either slightly a hit or very a hit. If you're even, it's not even that good, and it's very difficult to get a hit. Furthermore, Draven has to play with an engager, because in the current meta, you play Draven with an enchanter. You have to be very good to be able to get kills by yourself without your engager going in for you to CC them. So I think Draven overall is not too strong at the current moment, but of course he's still better than the likes of Ashe, Senna, as well as Miss Fortune. But with that out the way, let's talk about our final category, which is supports. Okay, so for supports, quite a number of changes in my opinion. So first up, of course, we have Lux and Soraka. So Lux and Soraka just got hotfix nerfed, which just speaks to how overpowered they were. So Soraka had like a 57% win rate, and Lux had like 60% win rate, which is absolutely insane. Now, despite the fact that they're nerfed, I still think Lux is probably the best support you can get in the game. Why? Basically because she has a route that's incredibly easy to hit now since it passes through minions. So it's like CC on an extremely low cooldown, and she also has the shield. Now the shield, despite being nerfed, it used to do insane values like shielding you for a whole health bar. It doesn't do that anymore because it got nerfed, but it still shields you for an insane amount. So I think that Lux is probably still the best support in the game, and probably should still be banned. Of course, the enchanters like Yuumi and Lulu are still really good, as is Nami, who's a little bit more aggressive of an enchanter. But Soraka, after her rework, I still think is really strong after the nerfs, because I've played with and against Soraka after the reworks quite a number of matches, and I think that her healing, once again, same deal as Lux, is not insane anymore, but it still is a lot of healing. I still think it's very serviceable, really good support still. So I still think she's part of the S plus tier, or rather, I should say she moves up to the S plus tier. So, in the S tier, some few notable changes that has happened is, of course, the addition of Glacial Augment. Makes champions like Pyke or Janna way better, because Pyke with Glacial turns out to be really strong. The main reason he doesn't take Glacial in PCs is because he generally takes a more aggressive rune like Hail of Blades, but since that doesn't exist in Wild Rift, the Glacial that you get from Pyke is actually pretty good at the moment. I'm not sure if it's gonna be the rune to take us, considering he can still take something like Electrocute as well. But whenever you hook someone in, the glacial field basically makes it really hard for them to dodge your E. They have to flash, or they have to dash, and they're not dodging your E. They get stunned and they get picked off. So another champion that's really good with glacial is, of course, Janna. Janna with her tornadoes is really good with glacial. And another champion you might be wondering why is in the S tier is Seraphine. Now I think Seraphine is a hidden OP pick at the moment, because the reason why I say she's hidden is because she basically does like the job of Lux or Soraka, mainly Lux honestly, but just a little bit worse in the sense that Lux's shields are much bigger. Think about it, Seraphine heals and shields on her W, roots on her double cast E, and even has a ulti to charm the entire enemy team. So essentially, Seraphine is actually a better version of Lux, because she can have CC like Lux on her E, which is equivalent to Lux Q. She shields on her W, same as Lux, and she has an additional charm as well. But why is she worse than Lux? Well, the main reason is Lux's shield amounts are so much better than Seraphine's shield amounts. But one of the benefits of Seraphine is that people can't dodge your W. So Lux, like, she throws her wand and it comes back, and sometimes people dodge the wand on the outgoing or incoming one, and you don't end up shielding them. Seraphine is like an AoE shield around her, so it's really a lot easier to execute as a support. And I think that Seraphine is actually really strong at the moment. It's just that of course her shielding is not as strong as Lux at the moment, which is why she isn't in the same tier as Lux. But I think that there's always a possibility that Lux gets nerfed even more, and then Seraphine becomes like the new like premier shielding support. So other champs like Nautilus as well as Thresh are also really good with Glacial, as is basically every engaged support, Leona, who everyone else. But I still think that the tier list looks this way. So anyways, that's the end of the tier list video. Stay tuned for, of course, the Draven video coming in the next few days. Thank you guys for watching the video, and goodbye.